Why doesn't this river disappear? In the middle of the Sahara, where almost nothing survives, the Nile keeps flowing. And the reason is something most people have never heard of. Every year, thunderheads build over the Ethiopian highlands, thousands of kilometers from the Sahara's burning sands. The rain here is not gentle. It comes in sudden, violent bursts. Monsoon storms drench the land from June through September. Rivers surge out of the mountains, swelling with runoff that will travel a journey few could imagine. Almost none of this water ever falls on the desert itself. Instead, it pours into the Blue Nile. By the time the river reaches Egypt, nearly 85% of its flow comes from these distant storms. Not from local rain, not from desert springs, but from a chain of rainfall events that begin far beyond the horizon. Satellite data from NASA's iMerg project tracks these pulses. The numbers are staggering. During the monsoon, the Blue Nile alone can carry over 5,000 cubic meters of water every second toward Sudan. The White Nile, fed by equatorial rains, adds a smaller but steady trickle. But it is the Ethiopian monsoon, sudden, furious, and relentless, that truly powers the river. Professor Getty Kasa, who studies the Nile's flow in Addis Ababa, puts it simply. 85% of the water in Egypt's Nile is born on the slopes of Ethiopia. This is the secret engine. Most desert rivers vanish because their source is too close, too fragile. The Nile is different. Its water is imported, delivered by storms that never touch the Sahara. The river's pulse is set not by the desert, but by distant clouds, far beyond the reach of sand and heat. And that is where the mystery begins. A river that should not exist, fueled by rain that never falls where it flows. A river that slices through the world's hottest desert should be an accident, a fluke, something erased by time and sand. But the Nile's path is no accident. Its course is ancient, locked in place before the Sahara was ever a desert. Geologists trace the river's incision back to the late Miocene, more than 5 million years ago. Back then, the land was rising. The East African Rift and the Ethiopian Plateau pushed skyward, tilting the landscape and setting water on a northward journey. The river did not wait for the world to become dry. It cut its channel deep into fresh rock while the region was still green, carving a route that would outlast every climate swing to come. Sediments along the Nile's lower reaches hold the story. Inside grains of zircon, scientists find fingerprints, age signatures that match rocks from the Ethiopian highlands, carried by water that flowed long before the first Saharan dunes. These same sands reveal a river that predates the desert by millions of years, a survivor of shifting climates and tectonic jolts. Dr. Amare Tades, a paleoclimatologist who spends his life reading the ancient riverbeds, says the Nile is not a product of the desert. The desert is a product of time, but the river was already here. That is why, as the Sahara hardened and most rivers vanished, the Nile's channel stayed open. Its valley was already cut so deep, so stubbornly, that even the advance of drought and sand could not erase it. The river's memory is older than the desert itself, and that buried history is the first clue to why the Nile never dries up. Beneath the Sahara's endless dunes, another Nile is hidden. Out of sight, below ancient sandstone, lies a buried reservoir so vast it defies imagination. The Nubian sandstone aquifer stretches from Egypt to Chad, holding water that fell as rain tens of thousands, sometimes millions, of years ago. This is fossil water, locked away since the Sahara was green, long before the first pyramid rose from the desert floor. During the dry season, when the Ethiopian rains fade and the river's surface shrinks under the sun, the aquifer steps quietly into the story. A slow, steady seepage, about 300 cubic meters every second, rises from these hidden depths. It's not a torrent. It's a lifeline, an invisible buffer that keeps the river from vanishing when the sky offers nothing but heat and dust. Scientists estimate the aquifer's total store at nearly 50,000 cubic kilometers. That's more water than the Nile itself carries in a century. But only a trickle escapes each year, filtered through layers of sandstone, emerging as springs or bleeding directly into the riverbed far downstream. Satellite gravimetry, using NASA's GRACE mission, confirms this silent transfer, a faint but measurable pulse that never quite stops, even in the harshest drought. Professor Lulit Alemu, who tracks these flows for the Blue Nile Basin Authority, puts it simply: the Nile survives its driest months on ancient water. Without the aquifer's slow gift, the river would stumble. The Nile's endurance isn't just a miracle of distant rain or ancient valleys. It's also the legacy of a buried ocean, still feeding life above, drop by drop, beneath the hottest desert on Earth. A river crossing the world's hottest desert should vanish into thin air. But the Nile moves through a landscape that seems designed to erase water. Heat presses down from above, sand radiates from below. Yet the river survives. The secret is hidden in the shape of its channel. Where the Nile cuts deep, the canyon walls rise steep and close, casting long shadows across the water. It is not just a dramatic landscape, it is a natural shield. During the peak of summer, satellite thermal maps from NASA's MODIS project show a surprising pattern. The river's floor, inside these gorges, runs 5 to 7 degrees cooler than the open desert only meters away. That temperature drop is not just a number, it slows the invisible engine of evaporation. Hydrologists working with the Siebel evapotranspiration model found something that should not be possible in this climate. The deep channels reduce water loss by nearly 20% compared to shallow desert streams. While ephemeral rivers dry to dust, the Nile's depth gives it a stubborn advantage. Less surface area, more shade, and a humid microclimate trapped between stone walls. Every degree cooler means more water survives the journey north. The numbers are clear. A river that should boil away under the Sahara's sun keeps most of its flow, protected by its own geology. No other desert river has this kind of fortress. And so, the Nile keeps moving, carrying the memory of distant storms through a corridor of stone, defying the desert's thirst. Across the Sahara, most rivers are ghosts. They appear after rare storms, rush across dry ground, then vanish, leaving only empty gullies and cracked beds behind. These are wadis, rivers that live for hours or days, then disappear into heat and dust. Their stories end almost before they begin, but the desert remembers a different world. Beneath the sand, buried channels wind through layers of ancient rock. Satellite scans and deep drilling reveal their shapes. Broad, meandering riverbeds, now hidden beneath dunes and stone. These channels were carved when the Sahara was not a desert at all, but a land of lakes and grass, teeming with life. During the African humid period, from about 14,000 to 5,000 years ago, rain fell in sheets across what is now endless sand. Rivers braided the landscape, feeding lakes the size of small seas. Sediment cores and pollen records speak of green savannas and hippos wallowing where there is now only silence. When the rains withdrew, those rivers dried up. Their beds filled with sand, their water sank underground, locked away as fossil moisture in the Nubian sandstone and other deep aquifers. The Nile is the outlier. It has survived every drought, every shift from green to brown, because its roots stretch far beyond the desert's reach. Yet even the Nile carries the memory of that lost era. Buried channels, relic springs, and hidden stores of ancient water still feed its flow. Where other rivers faded, the Nile endures, a living thread through a landscape shaped by forgotten rains. Today, the Nile's fate rests not just in ancient rains or buried aquifers, but in human hands. At Aswan, a wall of concrete and stone holds back a lake so vast it can swallow seasons whole. The High Dam, finished in 1970, turned the river's wild pulse into a measured flow, water released on command, not by the whim of distant storms. Reservoirs now stand between the desert and disaster. They store the flood, smooth out the drought, and feed a nation's fields year-round. Each year, the dam's gates release water for irrigation, for drinking, for power, enough to light cities and green millions of hectares of farmland. The old rhythm of feast and famine has been replaced by a schedule, written in ledgers, and measured in cubic meters. But with this control comes responsibility. The river's flow is no longer only a story of geology and rain. It is a matter of policy, of politics, of careful calculation. As a senior official from Egypt's Ministry of Water Resources puts it, we hold the tap. Every drop is accounted for. The Nile endures, but now its survival depends as much on human judgment as on the clouds above Ethiopia or the stone valleys below the Sahara. The river that once defied the desert now answers in part to us. It shouldn't be possible. A river outlasting the world's harshest desert. And yet the Nile endures, fueled by distant storms and ancient waters deep below. Now, as human hands shape its fate more than nature ever did, the real mystery is this: how long can the impossible last? Share your thoughts below.